Welcome to episode 105 of New Slang. I am your host, music journalist Thomas Mooney. We start off the week being joined by singer-songwriter Jenny Tolman. This time last year, Jenny had just released her full-length debut album, the charming There Goes the Neighborhood. It's such a fun record, and that's something that I don't think we talk nearly enough about. She obviously taps into these more serious subjects of the human condition, but There Goes the Neighborhood is also really fun. Essentially, what she does on the album is lead us through the fictional Jennyville. It's a concept record, and you can listen to it on a very broad level and enjoy it as well. There's that nice gossip and wink and grins about small town life in a very picturesque postcard or billboard kind of way, but then there's also plenty that you can pick at and find those deeper connections song to song and so on. I didn't think of this while talking with Jenny, but I think it's an apt description. There Goes the Neighborhood has a little bit of a pop-up book quality to it. Each song is like flipping the page, and there's this really bright and colorful 3D representation of that song. And I mean that in a very romanticized kind of way. I think Jenny plays a lot with those notions of what a picturesque life and town are supposed to be. There's a real vintage 50s or 60s image of what this American life is. But she also challenges those notions, stereotypes, and really the status quo of what that quote-unquote perfect life is. It's in the most obvious of ways with the songs like Ain't Mary Jane, My Welcome Mat, or There Goes the Neighborhood, but it's also in a song like So Pretty, where she challenges the idea of how you're supposed to hate the person who your ex is with. You don't like your ex because of how things ended, and by proxy, that means you're not supposed to like your ex's new flame. But what if she's actually really, really great and you are kind of just taken aback by that situation? Then what happens? Anyway, there's a lot of other examples of this on the album, and it's just a really rewarding listening experience. If you haven't checked it out just yet, you really should. It's clever, smart, introspective, sharp, and like I said earlier, a really fun album. If this is your first time listening to New Slang, I strongly suggest hitting that subscribe link. If you just did, I'm giving you a virtual high five right now. New Slang is over on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, and basically any and everywhere you listen to podcasts. Go check out the New Slang merch store, grab a koozie, some stickers, buttons, and magnets. Any bit helps. I'll throw a link into the show notes. And if you're into playlists, go check out Tom Mooney's Cup of Coffee and the Neon Eon playlists over on Spotify. The Neon Eon is for all your nostalgic 90s country needs, which there's going to be more Neon Eon related stuff coming your way pretty soon. And then Tom Mooney's Cup of Coffee is a regularly updated mix of new Americana and country music. It's also a really great hint at who I have coming up on the podcast. So yeah, go follow those. All right, I think that's about it on the housekeeping notes. Here is Jenny Tolman. So, I guess, when I first came across you and this record that you released last year, the biggest part of it is obviously that it is a concept record where you've developed Jennyville.
Yeah.
What, I guess, it's probably one of those chicken or egg kind of things, but at what point during the creation of this record did you decide to go full, hey, I want to make Jennyville a thing?
Yeah. Yeah. So it was honestly kind of an accident. It was never intentional. I didn't set out to make my own town or have a concept record, really. But it was kind of just a natural, organic progression that I had with my producer, Dave Brainerd, because we were writing together a ton for the album. And we were kind of starting to notice that a lot of the songs that we were writing had these characters that kept coming back, and we wanted to tell more of their story, or we wanted to connect this character to this character in this new song. And so it was kind of this natural, just tendency that we had, and just kind of realizing wait a second, it was actually Dave who was like, well, what if we take these characters and we put them into a place called Jennyville and they're just living there. And And even at that moment, it was just purely for our own personal pleasure of songwriting. Like, we weren't planning on turning that into the album or anybody else ever even hearing about Jennyville. It was just going to be like our creative place that we go to and that we know these characters. And then eventually it just kind of warped into like, oh, well, maybe this is kind of like a little symbolism or hidden Easter eggs here and there throughout the album, and we can connect everything and, you know, make it extra nerdy for those music nerds out there that will appreciate it.
Yeah, like I always love those little things, like where you know, it's like the gif of Charlie Day, like where he's got like all the stuff on the back of the wall and he's like connecting all the dots and everything. That's how I feel like when I'm listening to music. I love like trying to find those connections, and then, you know, there's some things where I ask a songwriter or somebody, is this connected? And they're like, oh, obviously not. And then you're like, oh, okay, well, I guess maybe I looked too far into it. But, you know, this is obviously like you guys do make it known for the artist or for the listener to check those out. And I guess like what really ties those all together are those little radio jingle type songs in there, and then also like Postcard from Jennyville. Those really make it feel like you like you're not just listening to songs, but you're like, you know, just cruising around town or something, and you're pointing out people or something like that. When did those, like, at what point did you go, oh, we have to have those in here too?
Yeah, so the commercials were all Dave's idea. That was a brainchild of the producer there, to kind of just add that whole extra element of, okay, we're in this town, and he wanted it to be like you are exactly like what you just said, like you're driving around, you're listening to the radio, and these commercials come on, and you're in this town, and so it just kind of solidifies these characters even more. The Postcard from Jennyville song, I love Emmylou Harris's record, The Ballad of Sally Rose, and there's a song on there called I Think I Love Him, and I think it's only a minute long, or maybe a little over a minute. It's just like this little half song, and it's very open-ended, and it's very like up to the listener to interpret what it means or what happened, and I've just always loved stuff like that where there's not a definite answer as to like what is this saying to you. And so I wanted to have some type of song like that to almost leave a little mystery hanging for the next album, to do a little foreshadowing to continue on the Jennyville process. So that's kind of where Postcard from Jennyville came from, because we introduced these two characters that obviously they were either in love and they were going to be together, and something happened and we don't know what happened, but all we know is that they're separated now and they're not together. And it's just this really like heartbreaking but beautiful melody. I always call it my Disney princess song. It's just so different than anything else on the album. And honestly, it's one of my favorite things on the album for that reason.
Yeah. You know, like one of those things that I always like too on albums are those little moments like that where you can tell like the main reason why it's on there is because whoever recorded the record wanted it on there. You know, it's like, this isn't going to be a radio single, or this isn't going to be, you know, if it was off, the listener probably wouldn't notice it being missing. But like, I want this on there because like it's my record, you know? And,
and it adds that extra creative element and, I guess artistic expression.
Well, you know what? That's really interesting, though, how you're talking about like how it will be connecting to the next record, and like, you know, I guess like that. I've not really thought about it like that because, but like, it's also very, very short in the postcard sense. I thought about how, you know, it's a very, very much like just like I said, or you said, it's like a minute long, but that's like the
Mm-hmm.
postcard. And, it's not a letter, or it's not a John Deere letter or something, or
Right.
Dear John. I said John Deere for some reason. What, something else about like Jennyville is how you're very much like introduced to this town as being very picturesque, and it's like all the nice things, but then like you dive deep into, like the gossip and the politics of a
Mm-hmm.
small town. How easy was that, like, for you to like just as far as like developing all those little riffs and passive aggressive conversations between people, and like hair salon kind of gossip and
Yeah.
barbershop. I guess, like, where
Yeah.
did you
So,
get into that? Yeah.
yeah. Um, I guess in a way it comes natural. I grew up, I was born in Nashville and I was raised in a smaller town outside of Nashville, but um, just honestly kind of experiences from my own life and from my co-writers' lives, and having very very what's the word for this, existential conversations with my co-writers, about, we all have different viewpoints on the way that the world works, and what's truth to us. And that really comes across in my welcome, that I feel like everybody in that song, every character in that song is somebody that I know personally, or my co-writers know personally, or it's us. And so it's kind of, I like taking the good elements of everybody, because even in bad situations, like even in a climate that we're in right now in real life, I feel like I always try to look at everybody as, we want the same thing in the end. We have very different ideas about how to get there. But if you just look at everybody's core beliefs, for the most part, I totally believe that we all want the same thing. And so that's kind of something that I was very careful about, when creating these characters. Was, yeah, there's gonna be gossip, because that's just how real life is. There's gonna be negative things about everybody, and so pretty, I'm gonna have these jealous, negative emotions towards somebody, because it's not nice to be like, I wish I hated you, but it's an honest emotion that I think we've all had. But anyways, back to back to my point. I try to look at the good and amplify that, yet still acknowledge that, these quote unquote negative things are a reality for everybody. We all do wrong now and then. We're all, but we're all doing the best that we can too, I think. So really just trying to acknowledge that, and almost like paying a respect to the small town culture, because it is a culture, and it is something that, I value and I love with all my heart. I'm a country artist. And so it's kind of, these ideas and these values are what I've grown up on. And so just kind of paying honor to that, but also enlightening it a little bit more, in any way that I can. Because I mean, I know I'm for sure not the most enlightened person in the world, but doing what we all can to help open each other's minds a little bit more.
Yeah. A couple things on that. One, like, I think that, like, I guess one of the big things that I try and always think about is, and keep in mind, and this is like overly generalizing the world at large,
Mm-hmm.
but that, like, for the most part, people aren't like evil. Like, they do
Right.
bad things, but like, for the most part, like, the general public is, there's not like an evilness in them. And you
Mm-hmm.
can do something bad and not be an evil person. And that's like, that goes to a lot of like I just feel like we sometimes chalk up bad things happening in the world as like this greater evil, instead of like trying to figure out why they
Mm-hmm.
happen. And now, like, that's to a broader point, but like, I think that, like, that's why so many of our great songwriters become songwriters is because you do have that empathy of trying to understand these characters who are from a different walk of life than you. And
Yeah.
specifically in like the small town setting, like you were saying, is one of the big things about small town life. I grew up in a small town, is that, you're generally kind of stuck in the small town. Like, and so you have to survive by, you have to coexist with these people because like you're not necessarily just going to pack up and leave, and they aren't going to pack up and leave. For whatever reason, you guys are both in this small town, and sometimes you guys just have to coexist with like I said, kind of like those, I always love like the little passive aggressive grandmas, of like, where you kind of like just like talk about, you can just tell like they both don't like each other really, and then like one walks off and like, but they've been nice to each other the entire time, and you're like, what is up? Like,
Yeah. Bless your heart.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then like they're of course always like just really, really, they can be like mean to like younger kids, and then like that's when they use the bless your heart big time. And like those younger people are like, they don't really understand that until they become that person later on. I don't know. This is probably like too much info on my stuff, is like with my family. But
Tell me how you really feel.
Yeah, no, I really like all of that, all of the like the small town politics of it all. And I don't even necessarily mean like real politics, but like,
right.
just getting along. I feel like you really tap into that.
Well, thank you. Yeah, so, there's a lot of dynamics that go on everywhere. And to that point as well, I feel like that was something that was important to get across, that there are so many dynamics, because I feel like so often small towns and quote unquote country music is written off as like, oh, Bubba and sitting on the front porch with his corncob pipe, and and these people are just bumpkins and idiots, and so to really kind of, like I said before, like honor that culture, because they are so dynamic and they are intelligent, and they have you know what I mean? There's so many different facets to that small town politics that you're calling it. It's so yeah, that was kind of an important thing to get across in all these characters, because if you have multiple characters, you're not going to have a boring, stupid community. You know what I mean?
We all get along.
I don't
we
think
all
things
are
get
going
boring
the right
and stupid
way
when everybody's the same.
Right, exactly. Now, obviously, also on this record, what you're mixing, like, in a lot of ways, like this, two very, I guess, in a way, two very specific types of, I guess, eras. There's obviously like a throwback to, like 50s or 60s culture, especially like in the radio jingles and like just like the fashion choices. But then also like on a song like Ain't Mary Jane or My Welcome Mat, you're talking about very progressive ideas that weren't around necessarily back then or weren't popular back then, but like are very, very super relevant to now. How easy was it to really like mesh those together, to combine those two kind of general styles?
Yeah, I don't think that it was really that much of a thought process on how we do that, because I think it kind of even deepens the characters a little more. Kind of like you said, that stuff wasn't talked about and it wasn't discussed. So kind of just digging into it adds a whole nother layer of that character and what they believe and their personalities, that, oh shit, they're talking about this like openly, like, okay. So to me, it kind of just drives home that character even more.
This episode is sponsored by the Blue Light Live and Tom's Daiquiri here in Lubbock, Texas. Like pretty much every bar and venue in the country, Blue Light 2 has been closed for much of the year due to the pandemic. What they've done, though, is adapt and evolve. And so for the foreseeable future, Tom's has curbside service. Monday through Saturday from 4 p.m. to 10 p.m., you'll be able to get your Blue Light essentials. That's daiquiris, beer, hand sanitizer, and snacks. What you'll want to do is call up Tom's with your order at 1-806-749-5442, and then you'll run by 1806 Buddy Holly Avenue and pick up your order. It's pretty simple. I'll throw a link to the menu in the show notes. While you're at it, head over to bluelightlubbock.com, click the merch tab, and get yourself some much-needed Blue Light merch. They recently just restocked with koozies, t-shirts, and caps. My personal favorite is this new shirt that they have in cantaloupe with blue ink. I know you're asking, what color is cantaloupe? Well, it's literally like the color of like a freshly cut cantaloupe. As someone who typically wears various shades of denim, probably gonna have to get this shirt for that much needed pop of color in my closet, but I digress. So to recap, call Tom's Daiquiri Monday through Saturday for some curbside pickup and visit bluelightlubbock.com for some Blue Light merch. All right, back to the show. You mentioned growing up in Nashville. Like how, I guess like, you know, obviously the vast majority of people who are living in Nashville aren't natives, like born and raised.
Right.
Obviously a lot of artists are not born and raised in Nashville. I guess like for you as an artist who is from Nashville, is there like, I guess like a self-awareness of like knowing that, you know, that 90% of country music is coming out of this town and everything like that growing up? Like what, I guess like, did you realize like you were living in a place that had so much cultural significance growing up? Or at what point did you realize, I guess?
I think I was blissfully unaware for the most part. You know, because my dad was in the music industry. That's how I was born here. He was put together by Burt Reynolds into a vocal quartet, kind of like the Oakers Boys. They were called the Indian River Boys. So he has a very interesting story. But long story short, they ended up here and sang on Garth's No Fences album and did a lot of cool stuff. But he eventually switched to the business side. And so I grew up with my dad working with Reba and Sarah Evans, and, you know, booking them on these different shows and producing different events and stuff like that. And so, you know, and I would be backstage at the Opry. And so it was very normal to me. Like I didn't realize how amazing that was, because now looking back, I'm like, oh my God, that's really awesome. Mm-hmm. But it was very much like, I think in a way too, it was a blessing that I didn't think that it was as cool as it was, because I also saw quote unquote celebrities in a different light. I didn't see them as being that much different than us. It was just like, oh, well, this is their job. Like, of course, this is what my dad does and this is their job. And so it was kind of like that, to where I don't think that the mystique or the smoke and mirrors really affected me that much. And so I don't hold that to a much higher level now that I'm an artist either. That's not the reason why I'm doing it, because I've already seen behind the scenes, I guess is the way to say it. And not at all in an egotistical way at all, just kind of being thankful for that. So yeah, it's kind of, but I will say, once I wanted to be a songwriter, once I had this light bulb moment of like, oh, wait a second, because I played piano since I was 3. I've sang since before I can even remember. I was Chicken Little in my kindergarten play. It was my first solo. And I've been writing stories since I was little too. I thought that maybe I would be a children's author or something like that. And but really, once I got a guitar for my 16th birthday, it was kind of the light bulb moment where it was like, wait a second. If I put everything that I love to do together, it's called being a singer-songwriter. And I love country music, and you know, that's what I've grown up on. I love the more traditional sounding country. So like, if I want to do this, then I can do this. And kind of since that moment, I haven't looked back, and that's what my life has been. So I feel like once I made that conscious decision, I started looking at it differently. I started looking at Nashville differently, and I started realizing, really, because I started meeting fellow artists and aspiring artists and songwriters that weren't from here and that had left their families and left everything that they knew behind to be these brave badasses and come to Nashville. And that was really, I think, when it hit me, I was like, holy shit, I didn't have to give up anything to try this, because I was already here. My family's here. My parents are here. You know, I have a support system. And so I'm always just amazed at how many people are so brave and have so much courage to leave everything they know to follow this dream. So yeah, I've kind of had a backwards experience.
Yeah, like to me, what it would seem like if growing up in a place like Nashville would be that since it is so focused on the industry, that it normalizes all of that. It takes down the facade of like all the mythical aspects of being an artist, and you get to see those people in a normal day setting, you know, just wearing blue jeans and a t-shirt, and, you know, just not necessarily where they have to be on their game like 24/7.
Right.
You know, you mentioned your dad being part of a quartet. Is that kind of like is that a tie back into like the radio jingle stuff?
Yeah, so that's actually them singing.
Oh, really? Okay, yeah.
On the album, they reunited after like 30 years and sang. So they're my Toughies boys. They're the Toughies jingle.
Well, that's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that was really special. It was really special for me, and they were just so excited to be together, and you know, it was really special for them, I think. Just after all these years to kind of get back together, and their harmonies were spot on the second they started it back up, so they haven't lost it yet.
Yeah, I was going to ask if it was a like pulling teeth kind of situation, or if your dad was like, oh, we're ready, like let's go, come on, it's not even a 5-minute phone call. And not like a...
No, they were actually great. I mean, just a couple quick run-throughs and we were like, all right, ready to go.
They've been practicing in secret this whole time, just waiting for this
moment.
Yeah, probably. You mentioned your dad being like on the business side of things, and you kind of being able to be around these artists and see them in that normal day kind of thing. I mean, there's always like really, it feels like there's a lot of people who always have those stories of, I guess like, oh, you know, Reba McEntire made me a sandwich one time. Do you have anything like that, like growing up?
Oh my gosh, I'm trying to think. Well, speaking of the Oak Ridge Boys, this is actually a really funny story. So, I was probably when was this? I was probably maybe 11, not even, probably even younger. Because it was, so my dad's company at the time, they were actually producing the inauguration for George W. Bush. And I was so little, like, obviously I didn't care. I didn't even understand what anything meant. And all that I knew was that it was freezing and I was tired in Washington, D.C. because we were standing outside all day. And I was just the biggest brat. Like, I was so tired. And so I wrote in my diary, and I didn't even remember this. My dad brought it out at dinner one night a few months ago. And I was like, it was so cold and it was so boring. And then my dad wanted me to meet the Cordage Boys. And so it was the Oak Ridge Boys, but I couldn't even remember their name right. And then fast forward to when I'm like actually starting an artist career, Dwayne Allen of the Oak Ridge Boys, he's such a sweet fan of mine. And he's actually, you know, reached out and talked to me a few times, just kind of helping guide me through music industry, and he's very nice. Like if you ever have any questions or you need to talk about anything like regarding any of this stuff, just let me know. So he's kind of an open ear for me, but it's just such a funny story because when I was little at this inauguration that I just didn't understand at all. And then my dad was wanting me to meet the Cordage boys, and then fast forward to now, they're like the sweetest supporters of mine.
Yeah, like that's just I think we all have like those brat stories of just being like the obnoxious kid at whatever because it's not the thing that you wanted to do. But not all of us
adult parties.
Yeah, but not all of us talk smack on the Oak Ridge boys. Like
yeah, I know. Like who did I think that I was? I don't know. I'm gonna have to show him that journal entry someday.
Yeah.
And hopefully he'll forgive me.
Yeah, that's really funny. Did you mentioned a minute ago about, all these other artists moving into town and doing the just kind of like, trying to fulfill their dreams. And did you really feel like since you did have that infrastructure of home and a bit of like that safety net, like where you're not ever like you're just not far from your parents. Did that make you feel like you could, I guess like, was that some like reassurance as far as being an artist, as far as like, oh, I don't have to try and be the next insert name. I can just do what I want. And do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah. And honestly, I think it was the opposite for me because I would almost get a little, because on one hand, I'm not jealous at all of the people that have had to leave everything. But then on the other hand, I would almost get, and jealous isn't the right word, but this like competitive thing because I know that when you have a comfort blanket, you're not going to be motivated as hard and you're going to be like, oh, well, like if this doesn't work out, I've got this. And that's never anything that I've wanted. Like my mom and I, from day one that I decided that I was going to start being an artist, we had a conversation. It's like, there's no plan B. I'm not going to even put any type of thought to this not working. There's only plan A, and I'm going to do plan A. And so it's been a very conscious effort for me to kind of keep that line of thinking going because it is very easy, or it would be very easy to fall into that, like, well, I've got all this here, like it's not really that big of a deal if this doesn't work. And so I've had to kind of personally just keep kicking myself in the ass, like like you're gonna keep doing this, like we're gonna act as though we have nothing waiting for us here, and I'm very thankful and I'm so appreciative of all the support and just the comfort of having my family here, but almost acting as though I don't have that to keep up with the people who do not have that here and who are so intensely motivated to make this happen for them,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because like it very much seems like, if you not, I'm really, I guess, like the romanticism of having to like struggle to be an artist, I feel is kind of like not like it shouldn't be a thing as far as, you have to like live super, super, impoverished and give up everything in a very like Townes Van Zandt kind of way. I feel like we romanticize that way too much. And, but like, yeah, at some point, like it does help in some respects of motivation, so.
You don't grow if you're comfortable. So you got to get a little uncomfortable every now and then.
Mm-hmm. Now, like, I think for most people, I think that like living outside of Nashville, like never growing up even remotely close to a music center, I feel like or for me, like I think most people, they think of being a musician as like being a like 0 or 100. Like there's no middle ground. Like you play guitar as a hobby and like on weekends with your family, or you're George Strait, and there's like no middle ground.
Right.
Growing up in Nashville though, like it feels like you would have a better sense of like that there is like a whole lot of middle ground. Did that help? Has that helped like maybe like not necessarily temper expectations of what you want to be, but like was that some like, I guess in a way, some like reassurance that you don't have to be George Strait or Miranda Lambert or Reba McEntire, because there is only a few slots for those very, very like top tier number one, I have like 40 number one hits, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I don't know if that ever really registered in my head at the time. I think that's probably something that I started understanding more once I was older and once I was actually in the music industry, because I don't think that I ever really was like, oh, well, this artist is a bigger star than this one right now, or this one's just starting out. I mean, obviously I was aware of that, but I don't think I ever gave it that much thought or was aware to the level that you're speaking of. But I mean, I definitely think that way now. And I'm sure that growing up, seeing all the different levels is helps it be a much easier, understanding of how it all works and how there are so many different lanes that everybody can go about it. 'Cause I mean, even when I was starting out, I was like, oh my gosh, like I have to get on a major label deal and I have to get on radio and I have to do all this and this and this and this. And so I was still in that mindset, even growing up here, like, well, that's what you have to do. But now, and it's probably changed too since I was growing up because of social media. And, because social media really came in when I was in middle school and high school, like big time with Instagram and all that. But I don't know. I mean, I feel like it's with all that, it's created such a different climate than even when I was little. 'Cause there was kind of this main way that everybody did it, at least in country music. And that's what I was around.
Right.
But now it's like once I've started making my own music, I'm like, oh, wait a second. Like I can go over here and do this and make a lot more money doing this than if I was to sell off this percentage and do this. And so it kind of, learning more of the business aspect, honestly, is empowering for an independent artist at the moment. And having that creative freedom too, is so important to me, because obviously my music doesn't necessarily sound like what they're playing on country radio right now. And not to say that I don't want to be on country radio, because that's obviously a big, huge goal of mine. But to be okay with my individual journey of getting there and of forming my own path to get there, because there's no one way to do it anymore.
Yeah, like you have to think about like if you were on a major label and they were really pushing you to make a certain record, this record would more than likely not be the more cooks you get in the kitchen, like the more like the less you have control of what your original vision was. I wanted to talk to you a second about podcasting and Buzzsprout. It feels like everyone has a podcast these days. It's been really great to see people use podcasting as a storytelling outlet and to find like-minded people. You may have seen New Slang take a really big jump this past year, and one of the main reasons has undoubtedly been transitioning over to Buzzsprout as my podcast host. They've really made all the quote-unquote unfun things about podcasting so easy. For starters, that's why New Slang is on every major podcasting platform now, and why it's been so uniform and organized online. I've always enjoyed speaking with songwriters and bands and artists. That's a given. But now Buzzsprout has made it so much easier on the publishing side. So if you've ever been interested in launching your own podcast, I'd highly recommend Buzzsprout, which if you follow the link in the show notes, you'll be able to A, sign up with Buzzsprout, B, be given a $20 Amazon gift card, and C, help support New Slang. Again, that link will be in the show notes. Have you ever watched that Eagles documentary? There's this, I guess, 3-hour one. I watched it a few years back when I was sick, and the one thing that I remember, I can't remember who it was. It was either Glenn Fry or Don Henley, but they were talking about how, they moved to LA and they formed the band, and then they play around for a year, and then they signed a major label contract and started making records. And I thought oh my gosh, that feels like, I don't know if it was easier to get to get recognized back then, or if it was so much harder and they just were that talented and partly that lucky. But it was the way they said it was so matter of fact of we just we practiced basically a whole year playing live shows, and then
I know
at the end of that we were rewarded, and it was
I've heard so many stories like that, to where, because it almost does seem, and I don't want to say easier to brush it off, but it does seem that it was easier in the sense that there wasn't as much saturation. I feel like there's, with all the different ways of putting yourself out there and releasing music that we have these days that are, great, amazing tools that we have, it's also something that starts to clog the pipes a little bit, and it makes it harder for any individual to get through. Cause I've always wondered, I wonder if, some of the legends that we have, like Johnny Cash and Merle Haggard, and, so all of these huge, magnificent artists, what would they be like if they were plopped into today's way of doing it? If they had to start all over right now, would they make it?
Right.
Because there is so much, and the world is so different on what they're willing to accept and put on the radio and label as country,
Yeah. And then also just the way records were made back then versus they are now.
Yeah.
How one of the things that always kind of just blows my mind is if you look at, obviously we're probably around the same age, and it's where right now you can go on Spotify and you basically your entire life you've had access to someone's entire catalog of music,
Mm-hmm.
and so that whatever, if you just go and start listening to Willie Nelson, there's not a whole lot of difference until you start really looking to see the differences between his first records and a record that came out in 81 or something like that. So, but I guess my bigger point on all this is that back then they were churning out so much music, a record a year. And it feels like now, the industry doesn't necessarily push that as much as you have to put a record out every 8 months.
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean, because Dave and I, my producer, we talk about that all the time, because we'll be listening to, seriously Sinatra on XM or whatever it may be on a road trip. And they just have so many songs. And another thing too is they all did so many classics. They all did the same covers. And
right, yeah,
that was a normal accepted thing. And people don't do that anymore these days now. And, but that's actually something that, we've talked about. Just what if we do put a record out every year? What if we do just have a constant stream of new music? Because why would we not? Why would we have to follow these rules that have been put in place? Because it's actually the Wild West, and the rules don't apply anyway. So if we've got music to release and we've got stuff to say and you know, and people are enjoying it, why ever halt it for a couple of years just to, you know, ride out whatever album you're on? If people are enjoying it, they'll keep listening to it. Even when you release your new stuff, they'll keep going back to your previous records. And that's something too, with making There Goes the Neighborhood, this record. It was important that I wanted a really solid first statement, and I wanted something that people could keep going back to, and not just something that was like the flavor of the week type of thing. Mm-hmm. So yeah, just kind of taking all those elements into consideration, into making things that are substantial and lasting more than just a certain record cycle.
Yeah, it is. It's funny how, you know, you say like there's these rules in place, but like there's no real like rhyme or reason for them. And it's like, well, I guess there's technically some reason, but that is always one of those things that when I'm talking to an artist and they're talking about, you know, oh, this record has been in the can for a year and we're just looking for the right moment to release it kind of thing. And you kind of get like this, like, well, why are you letting too much of the business get in the way of like releasing records? Like, I get like, when you should, like, you're looking for these prime moments, but like if you're putting it off for so long or like trying to find the right deal for it, it's sometimes you're going like, are you going to lose that moment? Are you going to like not really like these songs as much because like you're already moved on to the next thing for you as an artist, you know? Sometimes I feel like we let the business part get too much in the way in our just general life, and it's, I don't know.
Yeah, it's definitely a happy balance you have to find, because I mean, at the end of the day, it's all about the music. That's why we're in it. But then there's also that business part attached to it. So having to, you know, be smart about strategically and all that stuff, it's just definitely a balance. Because I know personally, for me as an artist, I've had so many different people come into my career for a brief amount of time and be like, oh, hey, well, you know, what if we took this clarinet out and we just added in some more electric guitar and maybe like a drum loop, and so, you know, changing the music to get to the business. And I've had to put my foot down so many times. I'm like, hey, there will be no business without the music. So I'm not going to make the music for the business.
Yeah.
You know, to me, it's like the business is supposed to be built around supporting the music, not the other way around. And it seems like recently, and it's probably, I mean, for better or for worse, it's kind of probably always been this way, but it feels like even more so now that music is running the business, or I'm sorry, business is running the music.
Right. Yeah.
Which seems backwards to me, because I'm like, wait a second. It's kind of like, don't bite the hand that fed you. Mm-hmm. Because your job wouldn't exist if you didn't have songwriters, if you didn't have these creatives that, you know, so.
Yeah,
but I mean, obviously the business is very important, and we're mutually feeding off of each other. But I definitely feel like some more respect for the creative process and the music, and, you know, and not being so stressed out about like, well, it's got to be a 4-month release here and a 6-week thing here, and or else it's not going to work.
Right. Yeah. Like it's part of it is like the putting the cart before the horse. You know, the cart is important too, but like you're not going to get anywhere without, like, you know, the horse going. And yeah, like that's I guess like part of it is like when you let all of that dictate your plans too much, you're kind of like scraping just by every little part. Like, it's just like you're just scraping a little bit more of the magic of the artistic process
Yeah.
away, and it makes it less fun.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, it's like you've got to remember why you started doing this in the first place. And that's, it can be a cliche sometimes, but that question of why is always in anything. That's the most important question to ask about anything is, why are you doing this? Or why is this happening? And what is your purpose? And to me, and I think to most artists, we started doing music to explore different emotions and to be empathetic, kind of like you were alluding to earlier, to help people work through certain things in their lives. Or it's like, I know that if I'm playing a show, it's like, I want you to laugh with me. I want you to cry with me. I want, it's like it's a way for us to connect and to try to understand this weird, wacky world that we're all living in, that we have no idea what's actually going on at any moment. And so for me to constantly be aware of that and to never get sidetracked by, I just want to be famous, or I just want to play to all these people so that they can grovel at my feet. And I feel like that is when you lose it, because that's when the business starts taking over, because it's like, well, is this move trying to further my message in the best way possible, or is it just trying to make money? And there's nothing wrong with making money at all, believe me.
Right. Yeah.
but just having the, what's the end goal? Because obviously my end goal is definitely to make money, but also I have this bigger meaning that I'm applying to why I'm doing it. And the money is obviously just a benefit, or will be a benefit, hopefully, and of our labors, just like any other job you put work into, you get rewarded in certain ways. So right. I don't know. I kind of started rambling off on that.
No, but you mentioned it something earlier that I wanted to go back to, and that is like, how has it always been this way? Part of me thinks it always has, but then also I can't help but think that social media has, I don't know, made it into something else too, because we're all just smarter about everything now. You know what I mean? I guess back then, mm-hmm. People were smart, we're going to send radio singles to all these DJs, and there was pop sensibility back then and all that kind of stuff. But now, mm-hmm. We're looking into analytics of Instagram posts and social media posts in general, and maybe getting too smart about the way things are as far as the business side, and that makes it really weird. I think too smart is a great way to put it, because I always say all of these algorithms and everything like that. It's like, I understand that there is an element of being able to track and research and understand more stuff, but then it also can get away from us to where it's like, well, wait a second, this is a robot deciding this and saying that this is the truth. But in reality, humans change their mind every millisecond. We're mm-hmm. constantly evolving and thinking differently. I think one thing today, I might think differently the next. But a computer, it's like, oh, it gets its information and it stores that and it downloads it and it moves on from that decision. And so, a lot of these algorithms and the social media and even the way that the streaming platforms work, sometimes it's like, well, these aren't actual humans making these decisions. These are computers, and computers don't have a soul. Mm-hmm. They can't feel what this song might make a person feel. But just because it doesn't have X beats per minute, it's not going to go on this playlist because this algorithm says that it won't work. But what if the group of people actually listens to it and is like, oh yeah, that's different, but we actually really like it. And so just kind of that. So I definitely agree with that
it can get too smart. It's too smart for our own good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Kind of like if we start replacing everybody's jobs with robots,
Right.
we're going to
Yeah.
replace ourselves.
Well, like that's the thing is like where, I guess it was a while back. I was talking to a friend about how, there's these programs that will write like screenplays and for big movies, and like they'll take a screenplay idea and run it through, and they're just off. They're all like slightly off, like, and it's because they're not human.
Yeah.
And so like they're getting better and better at it, but like what's more so is like what it's that beats per minute thing that you were talking about, right? And I guess like in movies they were talking about how, or he knows a lot more about this stuff in the movie, the film kind of stuff than I do, but he was talking about how they're a big box office hit has an explosion at X minute during the movie, and this is when this needs to happen, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's dictating what the plot is, but like those kind of like big action sequences work
that's fascinating.
best. And that is such a like weird strangeness that I feel like we all can feel. Like you're just like, it's not human, it's not natural, and I don't know, like you just kind of become hyper aware of like that weirdness in it. I don't know.
Yeah, well, it's removing emotions and soul out of it, which is, it's so important for humans to have human connection, whether it's like physically or that subconscious level of knowing that, there's a soul behind this, that somebody put their heart into this and they made an effort and they created this and they thought it through and they worked on it. And, there's so much more value in that than if you know that, oh, well, a robot just spit this out and for our viewing pleasure. And it's kind of almost insulting in a way, because it's like, well, wait a second, aren't we better than that? Like, why don't we want humans to do it? Why don't we want to better ourselves and create and creation and challenge ourselves, as opposed to just having a computer that can do it instantly, do it for us.
Yeah, and it's also like by no means is any of this stuff like, Oscar winning or like Grammy winning stuff that is like,
right.
But it also tells you like that the average consumer is just like okay with that kind of mediocrity. But I don't know, like I also at the same time, I try and like tell myself, don't sell people short. Don't like dismiss them as being stupid.
Yeah, I'm the same way, because I feel like I hear constantly from music industry people that like audiences are dumb. They listen to whatever we tell them to listen to. And I'm like, well, I guess to a certain extent, I can understand that. I know that there is like a scientific process that if somebody hears something this many times, then it's just going to become okay to them, and it's going to become normalized and your brain's going to just kind of whatever it. But I feel like if people are presented with options of quality, they're always going to be aware of what quality is better, and maybe not even knowing consciously why they like something more than another. I just, I'm like you. I'm like, I've got to believe that people, like humans, we have souls and we are spiritual beings, and we can feel connections whether we are aware of it or not. And there's just certain things about music or movies or emotions or whatever it is that make us feel a certain way or that bring us a certain emotion. And so I always I'm like, people aren't as stupid as they're made out to be. They just aren't being given any other choice.
Right.
And it's kind of, I mean, with a lot of things in life, it's like, well, they've got lives to live. They've got jobs to do. They don't have time to worry about, well, is this music that I'm being fed good quality? Does it have a good message? It's like, that's not their job. It's our job as the creators to make sure that we're giving them the best that we possibly can. Just like if they're building a house, it's their job to make sure that they're building the best quality house that they possibly can, And so I think it's a lot of, it's just kind of, I guess to me at the end of the day, it's like respect. Like, I respect my audience. I don't think that they're dumb. That's why I can, in my album, I can talk about these gossipy ideas and these small town things, because I'm not trying to disrespect it at all. I'm actually putting a microscope on it and honoring it in the best way that I can, and and exploring it and what the different levels of it all means. And you can get really weird and heady on it, but yeah, it's just I don't think people are given enough credit.
Yeah, like what I would combat that with is that it's not that people are dumb, it's that the average person doesn't have enough time. Because, like you said, like the living of their life kind of thing. And that's something that I came around a while back on, is that, the average person is not like me or you, where we have just time to listen to music and, overanalyze and listen to just all kinds of music. For the most part, people have like 9-to-5 jobs, and they've got kids to take to soccer practice, and they've got dinner to cook for a family, and they've got like all these things, while, me at the end of the day, like I am talking about music with people. And so that means like I can just listen to a lot more music, and I can like overanalyze music, and I can just dive deep into these albums that are not necessarily being played on their top 40 radio station that is their hometown station, or whatever or not necessarily hometown anymore, but you know what I'm saying. So it's it's just I don't know, we need to all, like, I guess give more people credit, because like once they do find these other artists, that you've seen it a million times on social media, people going, how did I not know about insert name here until, and oh man, since I've discovered this side of country music or Americana or whatever the case is, So,
and then it's funny because some of them will get mad when they have like a secret artist that nobody else knows about to them, and then that artist goes and signs a record deal, and they get on the radio, and everybody's a huge fan. They're like, well, wait a second, I knew about them before they.
That's such a weird
there's the opposite
thing.
Of that too. It's always funny and sweet too. It's like, I appreciate this.
it's so strange, because it's like you wanted to keep that secret to yourself, and like, this is my
so you're like,
or
well,
whatever,
hey, this is a really good thing for them. Hopefully. Depends
hopefully.
on a certain situation, but.
I was wanting to ask you a few last questions about your songwriting process, because I find a lot of that really interesting with artists and modern songwriting, I guess. So for you, do you like to like sit down with, a notebook or something in your like hypothetical best case scenario? Are you like a notebook writer? Are you a laptop writer? Do you write on your phone? Like, what is your like best case scenario setup?
Oh man, that's a tough one, because it's never the same. I've used journals, I've used laptops, I've used my phone. So I would say for the most part, I use my computer. And I generally tend to write lyrics first. But then I kind of, as I'm writing the lyrics, the melody comes at the same time. But I'm thinking about the lyric more so. But I mean, it also just depends on who I'm writing with. If I have a co-writer, if I'm just by myself, because a lot of the time I'll write by myself, and then I'll have something and I'll love it, and then the next day I'll hate it. So I love co-writing too, just to have that extra set of ears to be like, wait, well, maybe this isn't that great, and then to have their talents as well help the song out. So yeah, it's really, I don't know, I don't have a good answer because I'm just all over the place with how I write a song.
Yeah, it's always, what's funny about the loving and then the hating it thing is that I've been fortunate enough to like watch some co-writes with some like friends and stuff like that, and it's sometimes I think people would be surprised on how sometimes it can be real technical as they're writing, but what I think like more often than not, most people like transform into this like manic state in a way where like, especially if they're like really excited about a song, and then like after they get like this like writer's high after, and then you talk to them later about it, like a week later, and they're all, well, I don't know about that. And you're like, if you saw like so how like wide-eyed you were back then, like when you were writing it, I don't know like what changed, but like of course like you just like start not necessarily over editing it, but like overthinking about it and stuff like that. And it's such a weird thing. When you go into a co-write,
that definitely happens a lot.
Yeah. When you go into a co-write, are you typically like, do you like to have some idea of like what your ideas are, even if it means like having part of it written, or do you like to go in like, hey, I just have this idea?
Yeah, so I do not like going in without anything at all, because then I just feel like a loser. But I definitely have done that before. But I always try to at least have like a song title or an idea of some sort to bring. And then also another element that I take into songwriting is, well, what do I need to make my show even better? Because that's a whole nother element to my career. That's a huge, important element, even beyond the record, is the live show and entertaining people. And so I'm always kind of taking into consideration, like, well, do I quote unquote need anything? Like, do I need a little more upbeat over here? Or do I need to have a ballad here? Because, Dave, my producer, he talks about like peaks and valleys throughout a record, because you can't have everything just pounding the pavement the same way, because it's just going to get really old and you're going to lose your listener. You need to have peaks and valleys so that it's like kind of cleansing the palate during your courses and that. And so that's what I try to do for my live show as well. And so yeah, just kind of conscious of that. And then also, what do I have too much of? Do I have too much of this gossipy small town stuff at the moment? Do I need to take a little left turn down here and start a new chapter of a whole new character, So just kind of evaluating what the needs of my career and the album and the show and everything. And then some days there's just like, you know what, screw it, I want to write about this, or I feel this really deeply today and it sucks, so I'm going to talk about this. And then maybe those songs never see the light of day, but they healed me in that moment, or they healed my co-writer in that moment. So it's just kind of whatever the moment brings to you, which sounds really weird and hippy-dippy.
One of my favorite songs from the band Spoon is the song called The Underdog. And in this song, like, he has this line about it all can't be wedding cake. And like, that's what I feel it is. It's like, it can't all be like the intimate slow ballad, and it can't all be the super fun, like, chorus where, you know, it's like very,
Yeah.
very poppy. And because if it gets too much of one thing, yeah, you do get a little bit of like an ear fatigue or something, you know. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
and it's so easy to be pigeonholed these days as like, oh, well, this is what she does. And I don't want to be like, I
Yeah.
want to be able to put out songs like There Goes the Neighborhood and then turn around and put out a song like So Pretty. You know, they're so different from each other, but they're on the same album, and they're both very authentically me. And because I mean, people have so many different facets to them. We all have so many different characteristics. We're not just like, oh, well, this is the way that we act all the time.
Right. Yeah. Like it's, this isn't your one trick, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. So just kind of defining like, well, hey, before you put me into this box, like just know that I can also do this, and I'm going to do this as well.
you mentioned, you know, like writing those songs that you just need to get written that may not even ever see the light of day, but that you wind up writing because like you need to get it out there. Do you feel like that's part of the larger process of like, yeah, I sometimes this needs to be written to get to this point?
Yeah, I definitely think that's a thing. You know, I think we all have different conversations or activities or whatever it may be that are not the focal point of our lives, but they help us get to where we need to be. And yeah, I think that's definitely a huge aspect of songwriting, because obviously songwriters are, for the most part, very emotional people. A little overly emotional sometimes. But just, you know, the foundation of songwriting is having a way to have an outlet for what you're feeling, whether it's joy, whether it's pain, you know, and so just kind of respecting that and doing what you need to do to take care of yourself mentally, or your friends who are your co-writers. You know, it's just back to that, whatever is the calling of that moment that needs to happen. And it's usually pretty obvious when you're in that state. You know, if you're feeling something that heavily, it's going to come to you and it's going to come out, and it's going to, whether it's pretty or not, it's ready or not, here it comes.
Now, obviously, like the creative process, like it's not as easy as trying to schedule it out. It's not like, you know, you get these ideas and they happen and you're like, oh, I got to write about this. But in saying that, do you try and get like in a routine of like, I try and write, or at least work or something, be in the moment, you know, this time of the day, every day, or like a couple times? What is like, do you try and like, I guess, make it fit in within a routine, or is it more, you let it be a lot more spontaneous than that?
I'm a little bit of both, you know, like when I'm co-writing, those are scheduled, and I try to have a couple of those a week. But even that, it's like, I feel like if you start forcing it too much, I start to really dislike it. It starts to become a burden to me almost, because I'm not enjoying it. It's more so like, and I mean, it's a job sometimes you just have to do your job and force yourself to, you know, like, suck it up, buttercup. This is what we've got to do this today. And it's your job. So there's an element of that, but then, I do like to, I mean, when I'm writing by myself, I like to write at night a lot of the time by myself. That's kind of my time to myself to kind of process, like, okay, what happened today? Like, what am I feeling? What's bothering me? Or what am I excited about? So I guess it's kind of like a normal person would have like a diary or a journal entry that they might do to kind of process their thoughts and stuff. I just have it in a songwriting way.
It just has to rhyme.
But it's not always anything that I ever want anybody to hear, because they could be pretty terrible.
I feel like most people don't realize that, like, just coming from it as a writer, a journalist on my side, sometimes, like, you're trying to make a point and you're trying to get something out and, like, it's just not working. And my trick is to always just, like, dumb it down and just say it in as, like, just say what you're trying to say. And then, like, you can go back and try and make it more, I don't know, flowery. But like, sometimes you just have to just say it and, like, just get it over with to get on to the other parts. So, I don't know.
Very true.
So, yeah, it's been really, really great talking with you today about... Okay, that about does it for this episode. Thank you for listening. Go check out Jenny Tolman's album, There Goes the Neighborhood. Check out episode sponsor, The Blue Light Live in Tom's Daiquiri. And I'll see you later this week for another episode.